Hi, I'm Mike Thomas, President of Kiwi Indian Motorcycle Inc. This video is going to be about fitting up the front fender to a 46 and later Chief. There's no measurements per se, so it's got to work in relation to the front wheel, and you've got to have a good eye on this. So we'll go through the steps, and so you can end up doing this correctly. You've got to have a starting point on fenders. The fenders we sell are either going to have a hole in here or a marked starting point. Now, if you want to, if you think you're really good, you can actually transfer that straight across and do it on this side. But the chances are hitting it bang on are not necessarily good. So what you're better off to do is just start with one starting point over here, drill that hole just one size above 5/16 or 5/16. Some forks have got 1/4 inch holes, some have actually got 5/16. So check your fork first. But whatever size it is, just go one size above 1/4 inch or one size above 5/16. That'd be one drill size. Mount the fender to the bike and tighten these bolts up pretty tight. We don't want the fender to flop around. We want some friction on it at this point here. So when necessary, a bit later on, we're going to pivot this fender front and forward or backwards in relation, or to get it into the right relation of the front wheel. So get the wheel and slide it in. Just get the hollow axle or the bearing support out of your front brake drum through here. And just put her in the fork, your right fork leg. Put your wheel up, and then just slide the axle in. All it's doing is just centering things. Now, get the wheel centered between the forks. So you can have a look up under the fork, under the fender on the inside. You can see the distance there is even on one side, and come over to the other side. Probably a little bit hard to see, but it is centered. So make sure the wheel is centered between the fork legs. Once you got the front wheel centered, make sure your fender is centered to the wheel. So the center line is down through here, is to end up center line of your front wheel. If it doesn't, that means you've got your holes off and it's somewhat cocked. Now, the reason why you can't fit the brake drum at this point is through here, as there's another hole over here that's got to be placed for this. So we're going to do that once we get the fender in correct relation to the wheel. And all this is just really run by eye. Make sure you got a full 516 tire to do this. But it's all in relation. This area here, how it sits, it's by eye. There's no figure calculation. Down here, this bottom portion here of the fender actually is about level with the bottom of the frame. So those are good registration points. You've actually got to be level, about level with the bottom of the frame. And it's all by eye up front. Once you've got the fender in correct relation to the wheel, just with magic marker, just mark it both sides. So if anything should go wrong, you can go back to that registration point. Next, we're going to drill the hole for the brake anchor right in here. You're going to need to clamp the fender to the fork leg. So put down some masking tape, blue masking tape first, bit of duct tape that gives it its little padding, and just put a flat piece of metal over the top with a clamp that'll actually spread the load. Otherwise, what happens is when you're trying to drill the hole, you're actually pushing the fender away, and this joint here gets too big. But start it off with a half-inch hole, a half-inch drill. So just get the drill. That's a half-inch hole, and just start it off. And what it'll do is it'll give you a center hole, center mark in there, and then come back with a 1/8 inch drill, and then start at that center point. Well, you don't want to drill it all the way through on the first go with a half-inch drill. That's bad. So start out, just mark it with a half-inch drill, and then come back with an 1/8 inch drill. Drill your pilot hole, then you can come back with your half-inch drill and finish it off. Now you can clean up the hole with a file. So the sheet metal is exactly the same size as the hole. So just go in there with a file, backwards and forwards, and then just clean up the whole inside of that hole so it matches, or the fender actually, you're removing metal out of the sheet metal fender itself, not out of the fork leg. So make sure this part here is nice and clean and matches the hole. Next thing we're going to do is, this is the hole that's going to be for the brake anchor adjuster. So this is not really rocket science. It's actually, the hole's marked out. Use that as a guide. Start out drilling it with a 1/8 inch pilot hole, and then work up to a half inch or so, and then just stop at that. Now we're going to get the brake plate and fit it to the bike. It's not going to go all the way through, but we've got, every brake plate is different, so it's got to be custom done. Also, the reason why I put blue duct tape, blue masking tape down first is, if you've got a questionable paint job, duct tape sticks really well. So the masking tape, blue masking tape, comes off real easy. So you put that down first, and the duct tape's just actually acting as a little padding. So it's not going to remove any paint if your paint is not so hot. Once you've drilled your half-inch hole through here, just loosely put up your backing plate to the fender skirt. So get your brake drum, put the bearing support axle through it. This is all going to be your registration points, and obviously it's not going to go all the way through, but it'll give you a pointer if you got to file the hole forward or backwards. So just take it easy. You're going to use a file, just hand file it, and you're going to custom fit it to the standoff. They all vary from backing plate to backing plate, so there's no one size fits all. So even though it's got a hole marking there, it's only a general guide. So from that point on, just creep on it, take a little cut, put it down, put your file down, get the brake backing plate, the brake drum assembly, fit it on. That way you know if you got to go up, down, forward or back, but don't get too serious on it. Just remember, you got to have clearance around this for paint. So the last thing you want to do is have a tight hole, in this case, and you're going to put your painted fender on, and it's going to chip. So just make sure you got plenty of clearance for paint buildup. Once you've got your brake side all sorted out, come over to the left side and then drill a hole. It's one size above 1/4 inch for your left leg mount. The only other thing to do is to fit the fender trim attachment holes on each side of the fender. Make sure your fender has this hole here. This is for your front fender light wire. Don't forget it. Let the air out of the tire and fit the front wheel into the fork legs. Don't put this bolt in yet, because you won't get the tire past it. So it's a tight fit between the brake drum and the fender skirt in order to get the wheel in there. So sometimes you gotta, wriggle wheel backwards and forwards, but let the air out of it. It'll make it a lot easier. Double check your work. Make sure everything's looking good. But when you get the wheel up, slide the axle through. Don't worry about the lug bolts at this point. Just get the wheel up there and just put the axle through, and that'll locate everything, and then you can just spin the wheel and get it lined up with the holes in the brake drum. Make sure when you're putting the nut and washer on this side that you're actually using a washer like this. Do not use a standard flat washer. You can see this hole here is pretty big, and it'll actually just cup the washer in. So it's actually got to be this nice big fat special washer, and that's going to not cup in. So make sure that is used, and then put your split lock washer nut on there, and you're looking good. If you're going to fit a front fender tip or a front fender light to your front fender, the front fender tip, hold it up here, and you're going to have to custom fit that to the front part of the fender. It's actually going to hang down a little bit over the front, but just make it even from both sides. Take into account your fender trim as well. Now for the front fender light, you'll measure, pull an arbitrary line, center between the forks, mark it, and then go 15.5 inches to here. This is going to be the front bolt hole of the front fender light. So it's going to be 15.5 inches from center between the fork legs here. So it's 15.5 inches from there to the front bolt hole. Drill that and then work backwards. Once again, the front fender lights holes can vary a little bit, so do the front one and then progressively do the others. There's a few tools that are worth having. One is Prolong SP100. Terrific stuff, way better than WD-40. If you got any stubborn bolts, nuts, this is the stuff. The other thing is this little gizmo here. I bought out an Indian dealer some 25 years ago. It was actually Guy Urquhart, the famous Indian dealer in San Diego, and nobody's been able to identify what this little tool was. But it's a leg spreader, and not what you're thinking. It's got a taper in it, and it goes in there like so, and it just widens the fork leg just ever so slightly, so you can get the axle and the brake drum bearing support in and out nice and easily. You can make this tool yourself, piece of 1/4 inch rod, just make a taper on the end, and you got it. This tool here is a front and rear lug bolt and lug nut wrench. It's my part number is 212002T. It's a lug nut and bolt wrench for 46 and 46 to 53 Chiefs. Pinch bolt, a little trick to this. Don't just get in here and start whacking it in. There's actually a groove in the actual axle itself, or a notch. Line that up with the hole. If you don't, it will actually come up like so and just ruin the ends of the threads. So line it up. Sometimes you actually got to get the fork leg and pull it in or out some in order to line up the groove. But don't just get it and automatically whack them through. Line it up first. The right side always lines up, but just make sure that the left one is always lined up. But there you have it. Everything should go pretty good. Just gradually sneak up on stuff. Don't get too carried away. Use your eye, little by little, and you'll have it.